This is the 7th Annual Super League Pod Awards. We'll bring you the best signing, best coach, most underrated player / matchday piece of equipment, biggest villain, best young player, old player, and straight up best player of 2020, as voted for by you, the SLP listeners. Plus, will we get a new name taking the prestigious Listeners Listener of the Year award? We'll close out the show by looking back on the listeners' predictions back before we even knew what a coronavirus was, giving us a chance to filter in some of the big news stories since we last spoke to you as well. So, for one last time in 2020, get strapped in, it's SLP time. Hello listeners, welcome along to episode 291 of the Super League Pod, or shall we call it the 2020 SLP Awards show, aka the 7th Annual Sloppies. Hey!
Hey! We've made it.
Yes. And there's a new award this year for the longest running podcast of the year, and I think it's us. But yeah, a long season is drawn to its final conclusion, I think, with the most important awards show. We don't have the wonder of Brian Carney's... did we decide it was real brick or fake brick? Real stone or fake stone? Anyway, we don't have Brian Carney's wall. You just have us in your ears. But you've got all of us. So you've got myself, Mark. We've got Alan. Hello, Alan.
Hello, everybody.
We've got Sarah. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. And
we've got Tim. Hello, Tim.
Good evening.
There you go. All four hosts reunited for the awards show. What we're going to do is the first half of this episode will be us going through the awards that you've all been voting for over the last couple of weeks since the grand final. And
what happened in that grand final? Just for those that might have missed that episode.
Well, I'll tell you what didn't happen. No one got sin binned, you tool.
I was listening to that thinking, there's not going to be any Kurhurst left apart from me.
No, yeah, well, it was go back and listen to it, everyone. It was the most outstanding grand final that we've seen, and the SLP recap show of it was one of the most
fiery, I think is the word.
Certainly the one that reached the whole level of pitch range that we could meet on this show, that's for sure. So the first half of the show will be us going through the awards, and the culminating in obviously the biggest award of them all, the Dr. Bob Phillips Award for Listener of the Year. And then the second half of the show is going to be a little bit of us looking back over some of the predictions that were made. And you might say predictions were meaningless in 2020, given how the year turned out. But actually, there was some pretty good predictions made, one way or another, that turned out well for people. So we'll get to that in the second half of the show. What we'll do when we're doing the predictions part is it'll give us a chance to talk about some of the news stories that have gone on in the last 2 weeks. Because, I mean, not much has happened.
I think the journalists have all gone on holiday, haven't they? Nothing's been going on.
Yeah, well, we were all waiting around at 12 o'clock yesterday for something to happen at 12:30 yesterday. But other than that, it's been quite busy as well anyway. But yeah, let's save that to the second half of the show. And we're going to start with the awards. First award to talk about is the Match Official of the Year. So I'll announce this one. We brought this award in 2008 because we thought, it's nice to be nice about the match officials. They do a job that most of us can't or wouldn't do. And previous winners in 2018, the award was shared by Ben Thaler and Robert Hicks. In 2019, Robert Hicks went one better and won the award on his own. In 2020, let's go through who we voted for first of all. So, Alan, you went for the secret vote, not on the ballot on this one.
Yeah, I went for Robert Hicks's beard because I'm open to suggestion, and it was mentioned in the last show, and I voted straight afterwards. So, yeah, there you go.
Fair enough. Tim, you went the same as me. We both went for Liam Moore. So, what do you think made Liam Moore your standout this year?
I think he really came on in terms of his communication rapport with the players in particular, and I think he handled big games a little bit better than he had previously, and just imposed himself a bit more for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think getting the cup final was a sort of sign of his progress. There was a little bit of controversy, wasn't there, about a couple of the decisions made late on in that final, but I think they were the right decisions. It just was the gravity of the occasion that made the decisions come more under the scrutiny, sort of thing. But from a referee that all you heard was negativity from the fans, to one that ended up being refereeing one of the showpiece finals, refereeing one of the semi-finals in the other competition, and had some really strong games along the way. And I remember sort of the way he dealt with a little bit of chat back from Sam Tompkins, I think it was in one of the playoff games, showed me that he'd grown in confidence and stature, which I always like to see from our referees. Sarah, you abstained. You Warringtoned this one. Is that because Hull FC fans are never happy with any referees?
Yeah. I'm just blinkered and biased and didn't want to vote for any of them. To be honest, actually, there was partly that, and partly I was struggling to remember what any of the referees had done.
Well, hopefully some of the other people that got votes will help you remember what they did, because Chris Hill and Tim G, you got a vote, I think, for your Simbin comment on the last episode, but those votes didn't count for you or Chris Hill. So people who did get some votes...
I refereed a training session this year.
Well, then it counted. You got one vote. Grant, Hewer, Thaler, Smith, Mikalauskas, and the person who voted for Mikalauskas didn't vote for Mikalauskas. They voted for the ref that lost his voice that time. So they all got votes. So that's why Scott got his vote. But they all got votes, but didn't make the top three. One person just voted for all of them at every level. And 4 votes, Alan, were made for Robert Hicks's beard. So you weren't the only one to jump on that one after the last episode.
There were 3 other very suggestible types out there.
Yeah. Well, Robert Hicks will be happy to know that his beard didn't beat him to the 3rd place. So
hang on a minute. So did the 4 votes for Robert Hicks's beard go into the Robert Hicks count? This is what we need to know.
No, they didn't know. Separately, Robert Hicks beat Robert Hicks's beard. Robert Hicks got 14% of the vote. Second place was mine and Tim's choice, Liam Moore. He got 27% of the vote. But the winner this year, and I'd convinced myself he won last year, but he clearly didn't. So he's finally got the accolade I thought he deserved a year ago, with 32% of the votes. Grand final referee Chris Kendall was the winner. So well done, Chris Kendall.
Yeah.
It tends to go that way, though, doesn't it? You tend to get recognised as a good quality referee almost the year after you have your initial performances. So yeah. I'd fully expect Liam Moore to win next year.
There was Chris Kendall's performance in the grand final, I think, was pretty strong, wasn't it? Tim might disagree. But...
He should have made a sin binning, but it'd have been stronger then, wouldn't it?
But to Theo Farge for being a little whine. But no, I think that performance will have been fresh in people's minds, wouldn't it? And he got all the big decisions right in that game. People would say so. Yeah, well done. Well done, Chris Kendall. Moving on, Sarah, do you want to give us the next award? An award that normally you wouldn't have had much input on, but this year you've had a chance to watch a lot more NRL than normal. Yeah,
we had quite a period of that being our only sport, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this award is the Best Brit Abroad Award. And previous winners in 2018 were Gareth Widdop and in 2019, John Bateman. This was, unanimous across all 4 of the hosts. We all voted for George Williams. There were some interesting votes that maybe weren't on the nominations form. So Bailey Hodgson got a vote, but he isn't abroad yet. Mickey McAloram's dogs got votes. They didn't count because they're dogs and not players. Campbell Graham and Ryan Hall got legit, if slightly questionable, votes, whereas Tom Burgess, who was on the shortlist, didn't even get a single vote.
I was surprised by that. I mean, he wasn't as good as George Williams, but he had. But he was second in my list of people I would have voted for.
Yeah.
I thought he had a good year.
I didn't even know Campbell Graham qualified as a Brit abroad.
Well, it's an interesting one, but his dad's Scottish and his mum's English, but he's Australian until he plays for Scotland in the World Cup next year, I suppose.
Yeah. Campbell Graham had a very good year, just by the by, but yeah.
Yeah. It was a fairly convincing win when we revealed that in third place, Ryan Hall got 2% of the vote. In second place, with 6% of the vote, was Herbie Farnworth, and with an astonishing, but I think fully deserved, 90% of the vote was George Williams. So well done to George Williams on that.
Yeah, I can't believe someone stole some votes off him there by giving them to Ryan Hall. The people who did that need to have a look at themselves. But
I mean, George Williams has been, was incredible, especially, when it restarted. He was totally dominating games, I thought, and controlling them, wasn't he?
Yeah, there was a period in the competition where he was leading the way for assists, and that was in a side that had the player that ended up being the Dally M Player of the Year in Australia as well, alongside him in the halfbacks. Yet Williams consistently impressed with a really good debut season. I mean, I'm biased for George Williams, but even with that bias in mind, he was still one of the standout players in the competition, not just the standout British player in the NRL competition.
You see, because I would actually say I'm biased against him.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like him as a Wigan player. I thought he was a bit overhyped. But, I thought the games I've seen him in, he was phenomenal. And he did it both ball in hand, taking on the line, putting kicks in, offloads, and defensively put himself about as well.
For sure.
Do we think that the Ryan Hall vote was from Dr. Bob?
I think that might have been one of the votes he got, yeah.
Maybe Tom as well.
I remember reading a vote that was for Ryan Hall, because I had to amend it so it was counted correctly, because they'd written Ryan Hall for all the tries he didn't score. But I don't know if that was Dr. Bob or someone else. But yeah, there was a Ryan Hall vote that needed quality control, although they all should have been quality controlled off the bloody ballot sheet. It's fair to say we agree with that one. We all agree with that one, though. So well done to the voters for the Best Brit Abroad. Tim, what's the next award?
It's Most Underrated Player, and this one we've been going since 2014. First winner Oliver Holmes, 2015 Carl Abler, which was the year I believe he won both over and underrated player in the same year.
Yes, he did.
2016 was Rhys Hambury, 2017 Matt Cook, 2018 Matty Ashurst, and last year it was a joint award between competition winner Joe Philbin and Niall Evalds. In terms of how we went on this one, Alan and Mark, you were joint on Michael Lawrence, both going for the machine.
Yeah, I think this is where I always kind of tend to go with my underrated player votes, really. I kind of look at players who you see have a real importance to their team, but they don't ever seem to get any accolades outside of within their own fan bases. And Michael Lawrence for me this year in a Huddersfield side that's got a combination of young forwards and forwards that are never quite fit. For Michael Lawrence to be an ever-present in that side this year and do the amount of work that he did as the captain of the side as well, I just think it deserved recognition, and that's why I picked him as my most underrated player this year.
can't disagree with any of that. Statistically consistent.